Have you ever heard of a hero who is also the villain of his own story? Let's journey back nearly 5,000 years to the land between two rivers, Mesopotamia, to the magnificent city of Uruk. Imagine towering walls, so immense they were said to be built by the gods themselves, stretching towards the heavens. This was the domain of Gilgamesh. He wasn't just any king. Gilgamesh was a figure of legend, a man of immense power and presence. The stories say he was 2/3 god and 1/3 man, blessed with beauty, strength, and wisdom beyond any mortal. He stood head and shoulders above everyone else, a colossus walking among men. When he walked the streets of his city, the very ground seemed to tremble. He was the protector, the builder, the one who had seen the deep and knew the mysteries of the world. Under his rule, Uruk flourished. He raised its famous walls, constructed magnificent temples, and ensured the city's granaries were always full. He was the shepherd of his people, tasked with their protection. No enemy dared to challenge the might of Uruk, for they feared the wrath of its king. In many ways, he was everything a king should be: strong, decisive, and visionary. He made Uruk the envy of the world. But power, as we all know, can be a corrupting force. And for Gilgamesh, his divine heritage came with a heavy dose of mortal arrogance. His strength knew no equal, and soon he began to believe he was above all laws, both human and divine. The shepherd started to act more like a wolf. His energy was boundless, but it became a source of dread for his own people. He would challenge any man in Uruk to wrestling contests he could never lose, leaving them exhausted and humiliated. He roamed the city with an air of entitlement, taking whatever he desired. The epic tells of his right to spend the night with any new bride before her husband, a cruel practice that sowed despair and resentment throughout the city he had built. The very people he was meant to protect lived in fear. The laughter in the streets of Uruk turned to whispers. The sounds of celebration were replaced by prayers of desperation. Mothers would hide their daughters, and fathers would warn their sons to stay out of the king's path. The protector had become the oppressor. His divine blood didn't grant him compassion. It fueled his tyranny. He was a wild bull, rampaging through his own china shop, and no one could stop him. The people of Uruk, heartbroken and exhausted, could bear it no longer. They had no army to fight their king, no power to challenge him. So they did the only thing they could. They turned their faces to the sky and cried out. They prayed to the great gods who ruled the cosmos: Anu, the god of the heavens; Enlil, the god of the wind; and Ea, the god of wisdom. He is supposed to be our shepherd, they lamented, but he devours his own flock. His arrogance has no bounds. Please, create a rival for him, someone who can match his strength, someone who can distract his restless heart and give us peace. Their cries echoed through the heavens and reached the ears of the gods. The gods looked down upon the city of Uruk and saw the suffering of its people. They saw Gilgamesh, their magnificent creation, running wild with unchecked power. They agreed that something had to be done. A balance needed to be restored. And so, the great mother goddess Aruru, the one who had fashioned humanity from clay, was given a task. She washed her hands, pinched off a piece of clay, and cast it into the wilderness. From that piece of earth, she molded a new being. A man as wild as nature itself, a man whose strength would rival that of Gilgamesh. His name was Enkidu, but Enkidu was not born in a city. He was born in the wild, among the animals. His body was covered in matted hair, and he lived as one of the beasts. He drank from waterholes with the gazelles and ate grass in the meadows. He knew nothing of cities, of kings, or of the ways of men. He was pure, untamed nature. And this wild man, this force of nature, was the god's answer to the prayers of a desperate people. He was destined to be the one who would finally challenge the tyrant king of Uruk and change his life forever. The stage was set for a monumental clash. the most civilized of men against the most savage. The king of the city against the king of the wild. This is where the true story of Gilgamesh begins. Not just the tale of a tyrant, but the journey of a man who would be forced to confront his own reflection in the eyes of a wild-hearted stranger. We met the mighty Gilgamesh, the powerful king of Uruk, who was 2/3 god and 1/3 man. His strength was unmatched, his ambition boundless. But his rule, while building great walls and temples, had become a heavy burden for his people. They cried out, their voices reaching the heavens, praying for relief from their restless, tyrannical king. And you know what? The gods listened. This is where our story takes a wild turn, quite literally. In response to the pleas from the citizens of Uruk, the great mother goddess Aruru was called upon. She dipped her hands in water, pinched off a piece of clay, and fashioned a new being. This wasn't just any man. This was Enkidu. He was born of silence, created in the vast, untamed wilderness. Imagine a man as wild as the landscape he inhabited. His body was covered in hair, his locks as long as a woman's, flowing like the fields of grain. He knew nothing of civilization, nothing of people. His home was the steppe, his companions the gazelles. He ate grass with them, drank from the same waterholes, and felt the rhythm of the wild in his very bones. He was the embodiment of nature itself, pure, raw, and incredibly powerful. The gods had created him for a specific purpose, to be a rival, a second self, an equal to Gilgamesh. They intended for these two immense forces to clash, hoping that in their confrontation, Gilgamesh would finally find his match, and Uruk would find its peace. Now, back in the civilized world, a trapper was having a very bad day. Every time he set his traps, he'd return to find them destroyed. His livelihood was at stake. One day, lurking near a waterhole, he saw the cause of his troubles. It was Enkidu. The trapper was frozen in fear. He described him as the strongest in the land, with the power of the heavens. He saw Enkidu freeing the animals from his pits, helping them escape. This wild man was the protector of the animals, the guardian of the steppe. The trapper, terrified and defeated, rushed home to his father. He told him of this incredible wild man who thwarted his every move. His father, a wise old man, gave him some very specific advice. "Go to Uruk," he said. "Find Gilgamesh. Tell him of this mighty man, and ask him to send Shamhat, the temple priestess, with you." So the trapper journeyed to Uruk and stood before King Gilgamesh. He told him everything about the wild man, Enkidu, whose strength seemed to rival the king's own. Gilgamesh, ever intrigued by a challenge, was fascinated. The idea of another man with strength comparable to his own was something he couldn't ignore. He followed the old man's advice and agreed to send Shamhat. Shamhat wasn't just any woman. She was a devotee of the temple, initiated in the rites that connected the human world with the divine. Her role was crucial. She was to be the bridge between the wild and the civilized. Gilgamesh instructed the trapper, "Go and take Shamhat with you. Let her face him. When he comes to the waterhole with his herd, she must show him her beauty. When he sees her, he will embrace her, and then his herd, the animals who grew up with him on the steppe, will reject him." It was a bold and strategic plan, one that would change Enkidu's destiny forever. The trapper and Shamhat traveled for 3 days, back to the watering hole where Enkidu was known to appear. They waited. For 1 day, then 2, they sat in silence. On the 3rd day, as the wild animals came to drink, Enkidu was with them. The trapper pointed him out to Shamhat. "There he is, Shamhat. Now reveal your charms. Show him the art of being human." Shamhat did as she was told. She presented herself to Enkidu, who had never seen a human, let alone a woman, before. He was captivated. For 6 days and 7 nights, Enkidu was with Shamhat. She didn't just teach him about physical intimacy. She spoke to him. She shared food with him. she introduced him to the very concept of human society. She was his first teacher, his guide out of the wilderness and into the world of men. This encounter was a profound turning point. It was the beginning of his transformation, the civilizing of the wild man. After his time with Shamhat, Enkidu felt a change within himself. He turned to go back to his herd, to the gazelles he had run with his entire life. But as he approached, they fled. The animals, his only family, no longer recognized him. They shied away from his new human scent. His wildness was gone. He tried to run with them, but his knees failed him. He was slower. His body changed. The raw, animalistic strength was tempered, replaced by something new, wisdom and thought. He returned to Shamhat, sat at her feet, and looked up at her face. He was no longer a creature of the wild. He was something else. Shamhat looked at him and said, "You are wise now, Enkidu. You have become like a god. Why do you want to roam the plains with beasts? Come with me. I will lead you to Uruk, to the great city of walls, to the holy temple of Anu and Ishtar. There you will find Gilgamesh, the one of perfect strength, who lords over his people like a wild bull." Enkidu listened, his heart stirring with a new kind of desire. The idea of this man, Gilgamesh, resonated with him. He felt a pull, a need to meet this other powerful being. "Yes," Enkidu said, "take me to Uruk. Take me to Gilgamesh. I will challenge him. I will shout in the streets of Uruk, 'I am the strongest.'" He was ready to test his newfound self against the legendary king. Shamhat smiled. She knew their meeting was destined, but she also warned him. She told him of Gilgamesh's dreams, visions sent by the gods that foretold Enkidu's arrival. Gilgamesh had dreamt of a star falling from the sky, so heavy he couldn't lift it. He had dreamt of an axe, so strange and beautiful he was drawn to it. His mother, the wise goddess Ninsun, interpreted these dreams. She told him they signified a companion, a friend who would come, one as strong as he was, whom he would love as a wife. This companion, she said, would be his savior. So, Gilgamesh wasn't just waiting for a rival. He was unknowingly waiting for his greatest friend. Shamhat then gave Enkidu clothes, part of her own, and taught him how to eat bread and drink ale, the food and drink of civilization. His transformation was nearly complete. He went from a wild man, shaggy and untamed, to a man who was washed, anointed, and clothed. He even took up a weapon and began to act as a shepherd, protecting the flocks from lions and wolves, using his strength not just for himself, but for the good of others. He had found a new purpose. The journey to Uruk had begun. The stage was set for one of the most epic meetings in all of literature. The clash of two titans, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, was imminent. But would it be a battle to the death, or the beginning of a legendary friendship that would echo through eternity? That, my friends, is where we will pick up next time. The confrontation is coming, and it will change everything for them, and for the city of Uruk. We witness the taming of a king. If you recall, the gods created a wild man, Enkidu, as a counterbalance to the arrogant and tyrannical Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. After his civilizing encounter with Shamhat, Enkidu learned of Gilgamesh's abuses, specifically his tyrannical practice of claiming the right to spend the first night with every new bride in the city. This injustice stirs something deep within Enkidu, a primal sense of fairness he didn't even know he had. His purpose, once vague, is now crystal clear. He must go to Uruk and confront this so-called king. As Enkidu makes his way to the great city, word of his arrival spreads like wildfire. The people of Uruk, weary of Gilgamesh's heavy hand, are captivated by this strange, powerful figure from the wilderness. They see in him a potential savior, someone strong enough to finally stand up to their king. They marvel at his build, his sheer physical presence, so different from the city folk, yet so similar in raw power to Gilgamesh himself. They whisper, "He is shorter than Gilgamesh, but broader of bone. There is no one in the land more powerful. He is the one who will challenge our king. Enkidu arrives in Uruk and plants himself squarely in the main thoroughfare, blocking the path to a wedding house. He's a living roadblock, a symbol of defiance against Gilgamesh's tyrannical tradition. Soon enough, Gilgamesh, in all his regal arrogance, approaches to claim his right. He sees this wild man barring his way and is incensed. Who would dare to defy him? The mighty Gilgamesh, 2/3 god. The confrontation is immediate and explosive. There are no words exchanged, only the raw language of force. The two titans collide in the middle of the city square. The ground trembles as they grapple, a whirlwind of muscle and might. They wrestle with a ferocity that shakes the very doorposts of the surrounding buildings. Walls crack under the strain of their struggle. It's not just a fight. It's a clash of two worlds. The wild, untamed energy of Enkidu against the proud, despotic power of Gilgamesh. The people of Uruk watch in stunned silence, a mix of terror and hope in their eyes. For the first time, they see their king matched. He's not an untouchable god. He's a man, locked in a desperate struggle with another man. The battle rages on, an epic test of strength and endurance. They are perfectly matched, each a mirror of the other's power. Gilgamesh, for all his divine heritage, cannot overpower Enkidu. Enkidu, for all his wild strength, cannot bring the king to his knees. It's a stalemate. Finally, with their energy spent and their bodies bruised, the fight reaches its climax. Gilgamesh manages to gain a slight advantage, forcing Enkidu to a knee. But in that moment of near victory, something shifts. Looking at the fierce, unbroken spirit in Enkidu's eyes, Gilgamesh doesn't feel the thrill of triumph. Instead, he feels a surge of respect, of admiration. He sees not an enemy, but an equal. This is the first time in his life he has met someone who could truly stand with him, not just bow before him. His rage subsides, replaced by a dawning realization. The fight is over. Gilgamesh steps back. The tension breaks. In the quiet aftermath, a new bond is forged from the crucible of their conflict. Enkidu, looking up at Gilgamesh, acknowledges his opponent's strength and, surprisingly, his royal authority. Your mother, the goddess Ninsun, Enkidu says, made you taller than any other man. The gods have given you the kingship. There's no bitterness, only a statement of fact. Gilgamesh helps Enkidu to his feet. They embrace. In that moment, their rivalry transforms into a profound and unbreakable friendship. This embrace changes everything. The fight wasn't about who was stronger. It was about connection. Gilgamesh, the lonely king, has finally found a brother. Enkidu, the wild man, has found his place in the world, not as a beast of the plains, but as the companion to a king. The people of Uruk, who had gathered to watch a fight, witnessed the birth of a legendary friendship. Their cheers erupt, not for a victor, but for the union of these two incredible heroes. With Enkidu by his side, Gilgamesh begins to change. The wildness that once made Enkidu an outcast now serves to temper Gilgamesh's own harsh nature. Enkidu's companionship fills a void in the king's heart that power and luxury never could. He introduces Gilgamesh to empathy, to loyalty, to the joys of shared experience. The arrogance begins to melt away, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose that isn't rooted in tyranny, but in shared adventure. The taming of the king wasn't achieved by breaking him, but by giving him a friend who was his equal. Gilgamesh's transformation is remarkable. He stops his tyrannical practices. The city breathes a collective sigh of relief. The king who once took from his people now has a companion who channels his immense energy in a new direction. Gilgamesh is still powerful, still ambitious, but his focus shifts from selfish desires to a thirst for glorious deeds that he can share with his newfound brother, Enkidu. The lonely tyrant is gone, and in his place stands one half of the most legendary duo in ancient history. Their story is just beginning. What great adventure will they embark on first? That's where we'll pick up next time, as this incredible friendship leads them from the streets of Uruk into the great unknown wilderness in search of fame and glory. What challenges await them? So, where did we leave off? Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, has just found his equal and his best friend, the wild man Enkidu. Their rivalry has blossomed into a legendary bromance. But Gilgamesh isn't content with just ruling his city. He's 2/3 god, 1/3 man, and he's wrestling with a very human fear, the fear of being forgotten. He craves a legacy that will echo through eternity. He wants his name to be whispered on the lips of people for thousands of years to come. And how does a hero in the ancient world achieve immortality? By doing something no one else has ever dared to do. Gilgamesh turns to Enkidu, his eyes blazing with ambition. He proposes a quest, a grand adventure that will test their strength and courage to the absolute limit. He wants to travel to the legendary cedar forest, a place forbidden to mortals, a divine realm guarded by a terrifying monster. His plan? To cut down the sacred cedar trees and bring them back to Uruk. This act would not only provide precious timber for his city, but would also be a symbolic victory over the forces of nature and the gods themselves. It would be an act so audacious, so bold, that his name would be forever etched into history. Enkidu, who grew up in the wild and knows the forest's secrets, is horrified. His heart freezes with fear. He tries to warn Gilgamesh, describing the guardian of the cedar forest in chilling detail. He speaks of Humbaba, a monstrous creature appointed by the god Enlil himself to protect the sacred woods. Humbaba's roar is like a flood, his breath is fire, and his jaws are death. Just hearing his name is enough to make the bravest warrior tremble. Enkidu has seen Humbaba. He knows the sheer power they would be up against. He pleads with his friend, "How can we, mere mortals, venture into this place? This is a fight we cannot win." But Gilgamesh is unshakable. He sees Enkidu's fear not as a warning, but as a challenge to his own courage. He delivers a powerful speech, one that gets right to the heart of what it means to be a hero. He reminds Enkidu that all men must eventually die. Only the gods live forever, he says. Since life is short and fleeting, the only thing that matters is the glory one can achieve. A life lived in fear is a life wasted. He would rather die a glorious death in battle than live a long, quiet, and forgotten life. His words are so powerful, so filled with conviction, that they begin to stir something in Enkidu. Gilgamesh promises that he will walk in front, protecting Enkidu. "If I fall," he says, "at least I will have made a name for myself." Moved by his friend's passion and loyalty, Enkidu's fear gives way to resolve. If he must face this terror, he will do it alongside his brother in arms. Their decision is made. They will face Humbaba together. But you don't just walk into a divine forest to fight a monster without some preparation. They go to the elders of Uruk to seek their blessing. The elders, like Enkidu, are filled with dread. They echo his warnings, reminding Gilgamesh of his responsibility as king. But seeing his determination is absolute, they offer their prayers and advice. They entrust Enkidu with the king's life, telling him, "Let Enkidu go before you. He knows the way to the forest." Next, they visit the great temple to consult Gilgamesh's divine mother, the goddess Ninsun. She is heartbroken at her son's reckless plan, but knows she cannot stop him. She performs a solemn ritual, climbing to the roof of the temple, burning incense, and praying to the mighty sun god, Shamash. She asks Shamash why he has cursed her son with such a restless, adventurous heart. She begs him to protect Gilgamesh on his perilous journey, to guide him and to light his path. She officially adopts Enkidu as her own son, placing a sacred token around his neck and entrusting him with Gilgamesh's safety. This act solidifies their bond. They are now, in the eyes of the gods, true brothers. Finally, the heroes prepare for battle. The smiths of Uruk forge magnificent weapons for them. Enormous axes, each weighing hundreds of pounds, and mighty bows and swords. The entire city gathers to see them off. It's a scene of mixed emotions: pride, fear, hope, and sorrow. The people cheer for their king, but their hearts are heavy with worry. As Gilgamesh and Enkidu walk through the great gates of Uruk, they leave their old lives behind. The journey ahead will change them forever. Their trek to the cedar forest is an epic in itself. It's a journey of 6 weeks, but they cover the distance in just 3 days, a testament to their godlike strength and speed. Every night, as they set up camp, Gilgamesh performs a ritual. He digs a well, makes an offering to the mountain, and asks for a dream from Shamash, the god of dreams. And every night, he is tormented by terrifying nightmares. He dreams of a mountain collapsing on them, of a monstrous bull pinning him to the ground, of darkness and terrifying storms. He wakes up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding. But each time, Enkidu is there to interpret the dreams. And this is where their partnership truly shines. Where Gilgamesh sees doom, Enkidu sees victory. The collapsing mountain? That's Humbaba, who they will cause to fall. The wild bull? That's the sun god Shamash, who will aid them in their fight. Enkidu's unwavering faith and positive interpretations transform Gilgamesh's fear into fuel. He is the steady hand that guides Gilgamesh through his own inner turmoil, turning every bad omen into a sign of their impending triumph. Finally, after their long and arduous journey, they arrive at the edge of the great cedar forest. And it is more magnificent and terrifying than they could have ever imagined. The trees tower over them, so tall they block out the sun, creating an eerie twilight. The air is thick with the sweet, heavy scent of cedar. It's a place of breathtaking beauty, but also one of palpable danger. As they stand at the forest gate, they hear it, a sound that freezes the blood in their veins, the monstrous roar of Humbaba. For a moment, Gilgamesh's courage falters. The sheer, overwhelming power of the guardian makes him question everything. But this time, it is Enkidu who stands firm. He reminds Gilgamesh of his proud words back in Uruk, of his promise to achieve eternal fame. He pushes his friend forward, saying, "Let us go on. We have come this far. Do not be afraid." Their roles have reversed. The fearful one has become the source of courage. Together, they step into the forest. They advance cautiously, their giant axes at the ready. They can feel the monster's presence, watching them. Suddenly, Humbaba appears. The epic describes him in terrifying terms. His face is a grotesque mask of lion-like features. His scales are like bronze plates, and his teeth are a dragon's fangs. He unleashes a torrent of insults, mocking them for their foolishness. "Who has brought you here?" he bellows. A battle of words ensues, but it quickly gives way to physical violence. The fight that follows is cataclysmic. Humbaba is a force of nature. He is armed with 7 splendors, or auras, which are layers of divine power that make him nearly invincible. The ground shakes with every blow. The clash of their weapons against Humbaba's scales echoes like thunder through the forest. For a moment, it seems Enkidu's fears were justified. The monster is too powerful. He traps Enkidu, and Gilgamesh feels a moment of despair. In that desperate moment, Gilgamesh cries out to the heavens, praying to the god who promised to help him, Shamash. And the sun god answers. Shamash unleashes 13 mighty winds against Humbaba: the north wind, the south wind, the whirlwind, the storm wind. They blind the monster. They buffet him from all sides, immobilizing him. He can't move forward. He can't retreat. He is trapped. Seeing his chance, Gilgamesh strikes. He and Enkidu attack with renewed fury. Humbaba, now weakened and helpless, pleads for his life. He praises Gilgamesh, offering to be his servant and to give him all the cedars of the forest. For a moment, Gilgamesh is moved by pity. He considers sparing the monster. But Enkidu, ever the pragmatist, shouts a warning. He tells Gilgamesh not to trust Humbaba. This is a trick. If they let him go, he will surely hunt them down and destroy them. There can be no mercy. Enkidu urges Gilgamesh to finish it, to secure their victory and their fame. And so, with a final decisive blow from their axes, Gilgamesh and Enkidu slay the mighty guardian of the cedar forest. They have achieved the impossible. They stand victorious over the fallen monster, the sacred forest now theirs. They cut down the tallest, most majestic cedar tree to build a new gate for the great temple in Uruk. As a final trophy, they take Humbaba's head. Their journey back to Uruk is one of triumph. They float down the Euphrates River on a raft made of cedar, with the monstrous head of Humbaba as proof of their incredible deed. They have faced death and emerged victorious. They have made a name for themselves that will, indeed, last forever. But in the world of gods and mortals, every great victory comes with a price. And as we'll see in our next episode, the consequences of this act will be far greater and more tragic than either of them could ever have imagined. We've reached a pivotal moment, a story within the story that has echoed through millennia. In our last episode, Gilgamesh, our weary hero, finally crossed the waters of death. He's pushed his body and spirit to the absolute limit, all for one purpose, to find the secret to eternal life. And now, he stands before the only man who has ever achieved it, the legendary Utnapishtim. So let's set the scene. Imagine Gilgamesh, gaunt and weathered, his fine clothes long since rotted away, replaced by animal skins. He's traveled to the edge of the world, faced monsters, and stared death in the face. He finally arrives at this almost mythical shore and sees Utnapishtim, the faraway. But instead of some divine glowing figure, he sees a man who looks, well, normal. He's just relaxing, looking out at the water. Gilgamesh is taken aback. He says, "I look at you, Utnapishtim, and your features are no different from mine. You are just like me, a man. I thought I would find you a fearsome warrior, ready for battle, but here you lie, just taking your ease. How did you, a mortal man, join the assembly of the gods and find everlasting life?" This is the question that has driven Gilgamesh across the world. And Utnapishtim's answer is not a simple formula or a magic spell. It's a story, a terrifying, world-altering story. "I will reveal to you, Gilgamesh, a hidden thing," he begins. "A secret of the gods, I will tell you." And so, the story of the Great Flood unfolds. Utnapishtim recounts how he once lived in the ancient city of Shuruppak, a beautiful city on the banks of the Euphrates. He was a faithful servant of the god of wisdom and water. But the other gods, led by the powerful Enlil, had grown tired of humanity. The noise, the clamor, the sheer number of people on earth had become unbearable to them. So in their divine council, they made a terrible decision: to wipe out all of mankind with a cataclysmic flood, a total reset. It was a secret pact sworn by all the gods. But Ea, the clever one, couldn't bear to see his faithful follower perish. He was bound by his oath not to speak directly to any human about the plan. So he found a loophole. He came to the reed hut where Utnapishtim lived and spoke not to the man, but to the wall of the hut. "Reed hut, wall," he whispered. "Listen, reed hut, and pay attention, wall. Man of Shuruppak, son of Abaratutu, tear down your house and build a boat. Abandon your possessions and seek life. Forsake your belongings and save your life force. Aboard the boat, take the seed of all living things." Can you imagine hearing that? A voice from the very walls of your house, telling you the world is about to end. Ea then gave Utnapishtim the exact dimensions for the ark. It was to be a perfect cube, a massive vessel with 7 decks, each divided into 9 sections. It was an architectural marvel, designed to withstand the wrath of the heavens. Utnapishtim, though terrified, immediately did as he was told. But he had a question. What was he supposed to tell the people of his city, his friends and neighbors, when they saw him building this colossal boat? Ea, ever the trickster, gave him a clever excuse. Tell them, Ea instructed, that the god Enlil is angry with you, and you can no longer live in his city or walk on his land. You are going down to the Apsu, the great abyss of fresh water, to live with your lord Ea. And once you're gone, Enlil will shower the city with a rain of riches, of birds and fishes, and a great harvest. It was a cruel but brilliant deception. The people, hearing this, actually helped him build the very instrument of their destruction, believing it would bring them prosperity. Utnapishtim gathered everything he owned. He loaded the boat with all the gold and silver he had. Then, as instructed, he brought aboard his entire family, his kin, the craftsmen of the city, and the seed of all living things, meaning pairs of every animal, both wild and tame. He sealed the door, entrusting the great ship to his boatman, Pazir Amuri. And then he waited. The description of the flood's arrival is one of the most powerful and terrifying passages in all of ancient literature. At the first light of dawn, a black cloud rose from the horizon. The storm god, Adad, thundered within it. The gods of the abyss rose up. The god of pestilence, Nergal, tore out the dams of the underworld waters. The sky gods, the Anunnaki, lit up the land with their lightning, so bright it was blinding. The storm was so ferocious that even the gods themselves were terrified. They cowered, retreating to the highest heaven of the god Anu. They huddled by the wall like stray dogs, filled with fear and regret. The goddess Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, cried out like a woman in labor. How could I have commanded such evil in the council of the gods? I have commanded a great battle to destroy my people. It is I who gave birth to my people, and now, like the spawn of fish, they fill the sea. For 6 days and 7 nights, the wind blew, the deluge and the storm swept over the world. The water rose so high it submerged the mountains. All of humanity, everyone Utnapishtim had ever known, was turned to clay. On the 7th day, the storm subsided. Utnapishtim opened a hatch and looked out. The world was silent. All was flat. He saw the vast expanse of water, and he fell to his knees and wept. He had survived, but at what cost? The great boat eventually came to rest on the peak of Mount Nisir. For 7 days it held fast. On the 7th day, Utnapishtim decided to test if the waters had receded. He sent out a dove, but it came back, finding no place to land. He sent out a swallow, and it too returned. Finally, he sent out a raven. The raven saw that the waters were receding. It ate, it circled, it cawed, and it did not return. The earth was ready to be repopulated. Utnapishtim then opened the great boat and released all the animals. He came out and made a sacrifice, a grand offering of thanksgiving to the gods on the mountaintop. The gods, smelling the sweet savor of the sacrifice, gathered like flies around it. It's a striking image, showing just how desperate and hungry even the gods had become. It's at this point that Enlil, the architect of the flood, arrives. When he sees the boat and realizes that some humans have survived, he is furious. Who has escaped? He roars. No man was to survive the destruction. But Ea, the wise god, steps forward and confronts him. He rebukes Enlil, not for punishing humanity, but for the sheer lack of wisdom in his method. You, the wisest of the gods, how could you so senselessly bring down the flood? On the sinner, impose his sin. On the transgressor, impose his transgression. But be merciful, lest he be cut off. Be patient, lest he be dislodged. Instead of a flood, why not let a lion rise up to diminish mankind, or a wolf, or a famine, or a plague? This is a profound moment. It's a debate about justice, proportion, and the responsibility of power. Enlil, humbled by Ea's wisdom, and perhaps shaken by the consequences of his own rage, has a change of heart. He goes aboard the ship. He takes Utnapishtim and his wife by the hand, helps them up, and makes them kneel. He touches their foreheads and blesses them. He declares, "Hitherto, Utnapishtim has been a mortal man, but now he and his wife shall be like us gods. They shall live forever in the distance, at the mouth of the rivers." And with that, Utnapishtim finishes his story. He looks at Gilgamesh, whose entire quest has been fueled by the hope that he could replicate this feat, and Utnapishtim delivers the final, crushing blow to his ambitions. This was a unique event, he essentially says. It was a decision made by the Council of Gods to right a wrong. My immortality was a gift, a one-time reward under extraordinary circumstances. It cannot be repeated. Now tell me, Gilgamesh, Utnapishtim asks, who will convene the Council of the Gods for your sake, so that you, too, might find the life that you seek? The silence following that question must have been deafening. Gilgamesh has traveled to the end of the world only to be told that his quest was impossible from the very start. His goal is fundamentally unattainable. Utnapishtim isn't being cruel. He's being honest. He's holding up a mirror to Gilgamesh, showing him that the path of the gods is not the path of mortals. The very foundation of Gilgamesh's journey has just crumbled into dust. He has the story, the secret of the past, but the secret to his own future, the secret to eternal life, is a door that will forever remain closed to him. What happens now? How does a hero cope when he learns his ultimate quest is a failure? We'll explore that heavy, existential fallout in our next and final episode of the Epic of Gilgamesh. Fresh from their victory over the monstrous Humbaba, Gilgamesh and Enkidu return to the magnificent city of Uruk, not just as kings and companions, but as living legends. Imagine the scene. The city gates swing open to reveal their two heroes, bathed in the golden light of the Mesopotamian sun, celebrated by cheering crowds. They face the ultimate test in the cedar forest and emerge triumphant. Their bond is stronger than ever, forged in the crucible of combat. Gilgamesh, cleansed of the grime of battle, stands tall and regal, a king at the absolute zenith of his power and glory. He is the pinnacle of human achievement, a figure so radiant that he captures the attention of the gods themselves. Specifically, he captures the eye of one very powerful, very passionate, and notoriously impulsive goddess, Ishtar, the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Watching from her celestial abode, Ishtar is completely captivated by Gilgamesh's heroic splendor. She sees in him not just a mortal king, but a partner worthy of a goddess. She descends from the heavens, her divine presence shimmering, and approaches Gilgamesh with a proposal that would make any other mortal's head spin. "Come, Gilgamesh," she says, her voice a mix of divine command and seductive promise. "Be my husband, and I will give you riches beyond your wildest dreams. I shall grant you a chariot of lapis lazuli and gold, with wheels of electrum and horns of amber. The finest horses will pull you, and you will live in a house fragrant with the scent of cedar. Kings, lords, and princes will bow down to you, bringing you the tribute of the mountains and the plains. Your goats will have triplets, your ewes will have twins, and your life will be one of unending prosperity." This is the ultimate offer. Ishtar is offering him a place by her side, a life of divine luxury, and the power that comes with it. For anyone else, this would be an instant yes. But Gilgamesh is not just anyone. He looks at the beautiful, powerful goddess before him, and he remembers. He remembers the stories. He remembers what happens to those who love Ishtar. And so, in a moment of shocking audacity, Gilgamesh refuses her. But he doesn't just say, "No, thank you." He throws her offer back in her face with a litany of insults, publicly humiliating the goddess of love. He calls her a backdoor which lets in the squabbling winds, a palace which crushes its heroes, a shoe that pinches its owner's foot. He cruelly lists all her former mortal lovers and the terrible fates that befell them. He reminds her of Tammuz, the shepherd she loved, for whom she decreed weeping year after year. He brings up the brightly colored roller bird, whose wings she broke, the lion, perfect in strength, for whom she dug 7 pits, the stallion, magnificent in battle, whom she condemned to the whip and spur, the shepherd who served her, whom she turned into a wolf, the gardener of her father's palm grove, who was transformed into a blind mole. With each example, Gilgamesh drives the point home. "And if you and I should be lovers," he sneers, "would you not treat me as you treated them?" Imagine the sheer nerve. He is immortal, a mere speck in the cosmic order, publicly shaming one of the most powerful deities in the pantheon. He isn't just rejecting her. He is judging her, condemning her, and exposing her history of cruelty and betrayal for all to hear. The crowd, once cheering, would have fallen into a stunned, terrified silence. Enkidu, standing by his friend's side, must have felt a cold dread creep into his heart. You just don't do this to a goddess. Ishtar's reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Her beautiful face contorts with fury. Humiliated, scorned, and enraged beyond measure, she flies up to the heavens in a storm of tears and righteous anger. She doesn't go to just any god. She goes straight to the top, to her father Anu, the sky god and king of all the gods. "Father," she wails, presenting her case with dramatic flair, "Gilgamesh has insulted me. He has recounted all of my wicked deeds and thrown them in my face." Her fury is so immense that she makes a terrifying demand. "Give me the bowl of heaven," she insists. "Let me unleash it upon Uruk to destroy Gilgamesh. If you refuse me, I will smash the gates of the netherworld. I will release the dead to rise and devour the living, and the dead will outnumber the living." This is a cosmic-level threat. Ishtar is prepared to upend the entire order of the universe, to unleash a zombie apocalypse, all because her pride was wounded. Anu is hesitant. He points out that Gilgamesh was simply speaking the truth. "But were you not the one who provoked him?" he asks. He also warns her of the consequences. Unleashing the bowl of heaven will cause 7 years of famine in Uruk. The people, the innocent citizens, will suffer immensely. But Ishtar is relentless. She's already thought of that. "I have prepared for it," she claims. "I have stored up enough grain for the people and fodder for the animals to last them through 7 years of drought." Whether this is true or just a lie to get her way, we don't know. But her determination is absolute. Faced with his daughter's apocalyptic ultimatum, Anu reluctantly gives in. He places the reins of the mighty bull of heaven into Ishtar's hands. The bull of heaven is not just any beast. It is a divine instrument of destruction, a monstrous creature whose every step shakes the earth. As Ishtar leads it down to the city of Uruk, its arrival is catastrophic. With its first snort, a chasm opens in the earth, and 100 young men of Uruk fall in and perish. With its second snort, another massive pit appears, and 200 more men are swallowed by the ground. The city is plunged into chaos and terror. The bull is a force of nature, an engine of divine wrath, and it seems unstoppable. This is the price of Gilgamesh's pride. His personal insult has brought devastation upon his entire kingdom. As the bull of heaven rampages, Enkidu turns to Gilgamesh, his voice filled with a mix of fear and resolve. "My friend, we boasted that we would leave a legacy for all time. Now we must prove it." They know what they must do. They can't run. They can't hide. They must face the bull. What follows is an epic battle. The two friends, the heroes of the cedar forest, stand together once more against a supernatural foe. The bull charges, its massive horns aimed squarely at Enkidu. But Enkidu is agile. He dodges the charge, grabbing the beast by its thick tail. He uses his immense strength to anchor the bull, wrestling with the divine monster, trying to hold it in place. It's a desperate struggle, and he shouts to his friend, "Gilgamesh, we can do this. Thrust your sword between the nape of its neck and its horns." Gilgamesh, a blur of heroic action, follows his friend's lead. Like a master butcher or a skilled matador, he circles the raging beast. With perfect timing and unwavering courage, he drives his great sword deep into the spot Enkidu indicated. There is a terrible final bellow, and the magnificent bull of heaven collapses, dead, in the streets of Uruk. They have done the impossible. They have slain a god's fury. They have killed the bull of heaven. Together, they cut out its heart and present it as an offering to the sun god, Shamash. The city, which moments before was on the brink of annihilation, erupts in celebration. Their heroes have saved them once again. But Ishtar, watching from the great walls of Uruk, is beside herself with grief and rage. She lets out a cry of pure anguish. Woe to Gilgamesh, who has insulted me and killed the bull of heaven. Hearing her cry, Enkidu, still riding the high of their victory, commits his own act of fatal arrogance. He tears off the bull's right thigh and flings it at the goddess, a gesture of ultimate disrespect. "If I could only get my hands on you," he shouts at her, "this is what I would do to you as well." This is the moment everything changes. Insulting a goddess is one thing, defying her is another. But physically threatening and desecrating her divine instrument of vengeance, that is a line that should never have been crossed. Gilgamesh and Enkidu celebrate their victory, parading through the streets, hailing themselves as the finest of heroes. That night, the palace hosts a grand feast. But as the city rejoices, the gods are convening. An offense this grave cannot go unanswered. The victory over the bull of heaven was glorious, but it sealed a fate far worse than death. A price must be paid, and the gods have already decided who is going to pay it. Gilgamesh and Enkidu stood as triumphant heroes, having conquered the fearsome Humbaba and the mighty bull of heaven. They had defied gods and monsters, forging a bond of brotherhood that seemed unbreakable. But in the world of gods and mortals, every great victory comes at a price, and the bill was about to come due. The gods convened in their celestial court, their voices echoing with anger. Anu, the sky god, was furious. Ishtar, scorned and humiliated, demanded vengeance. "They have killed the bull of heaven," she cried, "and they have slain Humbaba, the guardian of my cedar forest. One of them must pay with his life." The great gods deliberated. Shamash, the sun god who had aided the heroes, spoke in their defense, arguing that they had acted under his command. But Enlil, the lord of wind and storm, was unswayed. "Humbaba was my guardian," he declared. "They trespassed and brought chaos. The price must be paid." The debate was fierce, but the verdict was final. Gilgamesh, as a king with divine blood, was spared. The fatal lot fell upon Enkidu. The divine decree manifested not as a swift, clean blow, but as a cruel, lingering illness. One night, Enkidu woke from a terrifying dream. He saw the council of the gods, he heard their judgment, and he knew his fate was sealed. A cold dread seeped into his heart, and soon his body began to fail him. He was struck down by a mysterious sickness that baffled all mortal healers. The vibrant energy that once defined him, the wild strength that had matched even Gilgamesh, began to drain away like water into sand. At first, Enkidu was filled with rage and despair. He cursed the great cedar door he had fashioned for the temple in Nippur, the very door he had dedicated to the gods. "If I had known this was my reward," he roared, "I would have smashed you to splinters." He cursed the trapper who first found him and the temple attendant Shonhat who had civilized him. In his agony, he blamed them for leading him away from his simple life with the animals, for bringing him into a world of ambition and divine retribution. He longed for the innocent existence he had lost, a life without the complexities of love, friendship, and the terrible wrath of the gods. But then, the god Shamash spoke to him from the heavens. "Enkidu, why do you curse Shonhat?" the god asked gently. "She brought you to civilization. She fed you bread fit for a god and gave you wine fit for a king. Most importantly, she brought you to Gilgamesh, your great friend, who will mourn you as no one has ever been mourned." Shamash's words pierced through Enkidu's anger. He remembered the joy of his friendship with Gilgamesh. He recalled their shared adventures, their laughter, their battles fought back to back. His rage softened into a deep, sorrowful acceptance. He retracted his curses and instead blessed the woman who had led him to the greatest friendship he had ever known. For 12 long days and nights, Enkidu suffered. Gilgamesh never left his side. He sat by his friend's bed, a helpless giant, watching the man who was his other half waste away. He, who could wrestle bulls and slay monsters, could do nothing against this invisible, divine affliction. He could only watch, his heart shattering with every pained breath Enkidu took. He saw the light dim in his friend's eyes, heard his voice grow weaker, felt his hand grow colder. The hero who had never known fear was now terrified of the silence that was descending upon his world. In his final moments, Enkidu turned to Gilgamesh. His voice was a mere whisper. "My friend," he said, "I saw another dream. I was seized by a terrible being with the claws of an eagle, who dragged me down to the underworld, the house of dust." He described a bleak, dark place where kings and priests were reduced to servants, where they ate clay and lived in eternal twilight, their crowns gathering dust. It was a vision of a grim, joyless afterlife, a world without light or hope. This was the destiny that awaited him, and soon all mortals. With that final chilling vision, Enkidu's breath ceased. Silence filled the room, a silence more deafening than any battle cry. For a moment, Gilgamesh was frozen in disbelief. He touched his friend's chest, hoping to feel the beat of his heart. "Enkidu, speak to me," he pleaded, but there was no response. The stillness was absolute. The wild man of the plains, the brother he loved more than life itself, was gone. A roar of pure, unadulterated grief tore from Gilgamesh's throat, a sound that shook the very foundations of the palace. It was the cry of a man whose soul had been ripped in two. He covered his friend's face with a veil, like the face of a bride, and began to pace around the body like an eagle circling its lost nest. He tore at his hair, ripped his fine royal robes, and threw his treasures to the floor, his wealth and power now meaningless. The world had lost a hero, but Gilgamesh had lost his world. He was utterly, devastatingly alone. The death of Enkidu marks the great turning point in our epic. Gilgamesh, the proud king who sought fame and glory, is now confronted with the raw, brutal reality of mortality. His friend's death is not just a loss, it's a mirror. In Enkidu's fate, Gilgamesh sees his own. This profound grief will set him on a new, desperate quest, not for glory, but for an escape from the very thing he now fears most, death itself. He will journey to the ends of the earth in search of the secret to eternal life. Join us next time as we follow a shattered Gilgamesh on his solitary journey into the wilderness, a quest born from heartbreak and a terrifying new awareness of his own mortality. It's a journey that will test his limits in ways that no monster ever could. Gilgamesh, the mighty king who once seemed invincible, is utterly shattered. He weeps for Enkidu for 7 days and 7 nights, refusing to allow his friend to be buried, hoping against hope that his lament might bring him back. But when decay begins to set in, the harsh reality crashes down upon him. Enkidu is gone forever. And with that realization, a cold dread seizes Gilgamesh. If his beloved friend, a man as strong as he, could be claimed by death, then what hope did he have? The king of Uruk, who had conquered gods and monsters, was now terrified of the one enemy he could not fight, his own inevitable end. Shall I not die too? Am I not like Enkidu? He cries out to the heavens. This single, haunting question changes everything. The world he knew, the kingdom he ruled, the glory he had won. It all suddenly means nothing in the face of oblivion. His magnificent robes are replaced with animal skins, a symbol of his return to a wild, primal state of fear. His face, once proud, is now etched with sorrow and anxiety. He can no longer bear to stay in Uruk, a city that constantly reminds him of his loss and his looming fate. He must find an answer. He must find a way to escape death itself. And so, Gilgamesh abandons his throne, his people, his entire life. He turns his back on the walls of Uruk and walks out into the wilderness, not as a king or a hero, but as a desperate wanderer. His new quest is not for fame or glory, but for something far more elusive, the secret to eternal life. He has heard whispers, ancient tales of a single mortal man who escaped death's grasp. This man's name is Utnapishtim, sometimes called Utnapishtim the Faraway. Utnapishtim's story is legendary. He is the sole survivor of a great world-destroying flood, a cataclysm sent by the gods to wipe out humanity. For reasons known only to the Divine Council, Utnapishtim and his family were saved, and as a reward for their survival and obedience, the gods granted them the one gift every mortal craves: immortality. He and his wife now live in a mythical paradise at the very ends of the earth, a place called Dilmun, beyond the waters of death. This is Gilgamesh's destination. He believes that if he can just find Utnapishtim, he can learn the secret. He can force the answer from the ancient man and claim eternal life for himself. It is a desperate, almost insane undertaking. The journey will be perilous, taking him to the edges of the known world and beyond, through landscapes no mortal has ever seen. But Gilgamesh is driven by a fear more powerful than any monster he has ever faced. His journey begins. He travels for leagues under the burning sun and through chilling nights. He encounters wild beasts, but the man who once hunted for sport now fights only to survive. He is no longer the proud Gilgamesh. He is a man hollowed out by grief, a shell of his former self, propelled forward only by his all-consuming terror of death. His path eventually leads him to the great twin peaks of Mount Mashu, the colossal mountains that guard the daily passage of the sun. At the gate of the mountain stand two terrifying beings, scorpion folk, whose gaze is death itself. They are half human, half scorpion, guardians of this sacred forbidden passage. When they see Gilgamesh approaching, they are astonished. No mortal has ever dared to come this far. They see his haggard appearance, the animal skins he wears, the despair in his eyes. They question him, their voices echoing with ancient power. Why have you come here? Why have you undertaken this impossible journey? Gilgamesh, with a humility he has never known before, tells them his story. He speaks of Enkidu, his beloved friend, and the profound sorrow that has set him on this path. He explains his quest to find Utnapishtim and conquer death. His grief is so raw, so powerful, that it moves even these monstrous guardians. Seeing the truth of his suffering, they take pity on him. They warn him that the path through the mountain is one of utter darkness, a tunnel that the sun travels through at night, a path no mortal could survive. But Gilgamesh is resolute. Even if it is filled with sorrow and pain, he declares, "I must go." Moved by his determination, the scorpion folk open the gate for him and allow him to enter the sun's tunnel. "Go, Gilgamesh," they say. "May you safely reach your destination." As soon as he steps inside, he is plunged into absolute suffocating darkness. It is a blackness so complete that he cannot see his own hand in front of his face. He walks on, stumbling through the void. For 1 league, then 2, then 3, the darkness is unrelenting. The air is thick and still, and the silence is deafening, broken only by the sound of his own frantic heartbeat and ragged breaths. He is utterly alone, surrounded by a nothingness that mirrors the void he fears in death. Doubt and despair begin to creep in. Is this journey futile? Is he simply walking into his own tomb? The wind begins to howl through the tunnel, a chilling sound that seems to mock his quest. He feels the pressure of the mountain above him, the weight of the world pressing down. Every instinct screams at him to turn back, to flee the suffocating dark. But then he thinks of Enkidu. He remembers his friend's final moments, the fading light in his eyes. He feels the terror of his own mortality rise up again, a fire that burns away the cold fear of the tunnel. He cannot go back. He must keep moving forward. He pushes on, running now, racing against time, for he knows the sun will soon begin its nightly journey through the tunnel, and its fiery passage would surely incinerate him. After walking for 12 long leagues in total darkness, a faint glimmer appears ahead. A breeze, fresh and cool, touches his face. Hope surges through him. He quickens his pace, running toward the light, and bursts out of the tunnel, gasping into a world of breathtaking beauty. He finds himself in a wondrous garden of the gods. The trees here are not ordinary. They bear fruit of precious stones. Carnelian, lapis lazuli, and dazzling jewels hang from the branches like ripe plums. The ground is covered in shimmering gems, and the leaves on the trees are made of agate. It is a place of unbelievable splendor, a paradise at the edge of the world. But Gilgamesh has no time for jewels. His eyes are fixed on the horizon, searching for the next step of his journey. It is here, in this magical garden by the sea, that he will meet the next crucial figure in his quest. Siduri, the divine alewife, the keeper of the tavern at the end of the world. Her wisdom will present Gilgamesh with a choice that will test the very foundation of his quest. Will he listen to her advice, or will his obsession drive him even further into the unknown? The quest for immortality has led Gilgamesh through darkness and into a jeweled paradise. But his journey is far from over. He must now cross an ocean of death itself. Join us next time as Gilgamesh confronts the divine Siduri and faces the greatest obstacle yet, the waters of death. Epic adventurers, and welcome back to our journey through the world's first great work of literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Last time, we left a grief-stricken Gilgamesh, shattered by the death of his beloved friend Enkidu. The fear of his own mortality has now consumed him, setting him on a desperate quest for the one man said to have cheated death, Utnapishtim. Get ready, because today, Gilgamesh's journey truly begins, taking him to the very edge of the world. Clad in lion skins, a wild man once more, Gilgamesh ventures into the vast, unforgiving wilderness. His royal robes are gone, replaced by the rugged attire of a wanderer. The once proud king, who commanded armies and built magnificent cities, is now a solitary figure, haunted by visions of his own decay. His journey isn't just a physical one across deserts and mountains. It's a desperate pilgrimage into the depths of his own fear and sorrow. Every step is a battle against despair, every sunrise a painful reminder of the time he is losing. His path eventually leads him to the twin peaks of Mount Mashu, a place so colossal it's said to guard the daily passage of the sun. The ancient texts describe these mountains as reaching up to the heavens and plunging down into the netherworld. And who guards this impossible gateway? The fearsome scorpion men. Imagine beings, half human, half scorpion, whose very gaze is death. They are terrifying, their aura radiating a power that could paralyze any ordinary mortal. When the scorpion man and his mate see Gilgamesh approaching, they are stunned. They recognize him immediately. The one who comes to us, the scorpion man says. His body is the flesh of the gods. They sense the divine blood in his veins, but they also see the desperation etched on his face, the profound human sorrow that drives him. They question him, their voices echoing with ancient authority. Why have you traveled so far? Why have you crossed impassable lands to stand before us? Gilgamesh, his voice raw with emotion, doesn't hide his purpose. He tells them everything about Enkidu, his brother, who has turned to clay, and the paralyzing fear of death that now grips him. "I have come," he declares, "on account of my ancestor Utnapishtim, who joined the assembly of the gods and was granted eternal life. I must ask him the secret of life and death. He is no longer the arrogant king. He is a supplicant, begging for passage." Moved by his profound grief and unwavering determination, the Scorpion men take pity on him. They know the path ahead is not meant for mortals. The Scorpion man warns him, "No man has ever traveled this road, Gilgamesh. Ahead lies a tunnel of 12 leagues of utter, complete darkness. No light, no sight, only a profound blackness from beginning to end. It's a journey through the bowels of the earth, the path the sun takes at night." The very concept is terrifying. But Gilgamesh is unyielding. Fear of darkness is nothing compared to his fear of oblivion. He insists he must go on. Seeing his resolve, the Scorpion man relents. "Go, Gilgamesh," he says, opening the great mountain gate. "May the path be safe for your feet." With that final blessing, Gilgamesh steps over the threshold, and the gate to the mountain of the sun closes behind him, plunging him into absolute blackness. Can you imagine this? For 12 long leagues, that's roughly 36 miles or 58 kilometers, Gilgamesh walks in total darkness. The text is brilliantly descriptive here. Dense was the darkness, and there was no light. He could see nothing ahead and nothing behind. 1 league, 2 leagues, he pushes on. The silence is deafening, broken only by his own footsteps and the pounding of his own heart. This is a symbolic journey through the underworld, a trial of pure will. He is alone with his thoughts, his grief, and his terror. As he progresses, the darkness becomes a physical presence, pressing in on him. At 8 leagues, he cries out in the blackness, his mind on the verge of breaking. At 9 leagues, he feels a wind on his face. Hope, or just a trick of the suffocating dark? He's disoriented, exhausted, but he forces himself onward, driven by the memory of Enkidu and the hope of an answer. This isn't just a walk. It's an extreme endurance test for both body and soul. Then, after what feels like an eternity, as he completes the 12th lead, a faint glimmer of light appears. He stumbles forward, his eyes struggling to adjust, and emerges from the tunnel, blinking, into a world unlike any he has ever known. He finds himself in a breathtaking garden. The trees are not ordinary trees. They bear gemstones instead of fruit. Carnelian, lapis lazuli, and other precious stones hang from the branches like glistening jewels, shimmering in the divine light. It is the garden of the gods, a place of impossible beauty at the edge of the world. He has passed the test. He has walked through the belly of the earth and emerged on the other side. Exhausted but alive, he stands in this magical grove, gazing at the otherworldly splendor. But this is not his destination. He continues on his journey until he reaches the shore of a vast sea, the waters of death. And there, by the sea, he finds a tavern. The keeper of this tavern is a mysterious and wise woman named Siduri. She is a divine figure, a Brewess to the gods. When she sees Gilgamesh from her rooftop, she is alarmed. He looks like a hunter, a wild man, his face weathered by hardship, his clothes in tatters. Fearing he is a criminal or something worse, she bars her gate. Gilgamesh, seeing the gate closed, pounds on the door, his voice booming with the authority he has not yet completely lost. He threatens to smash the door down if she doesn't open it. Siduri, cautious but intrigued, calls out to him, asking who he is and why he looks so wretched. Once again, Gilgamesh pours out his heart. He tells her of his glorious life as the king of Uruk, his deep friendship with Enkidu, and the devastating loss that has set him on this impossible quest for immortality. Siduri listens patiently. When he is finished, she offers him not a path to Utnapishtim, but a piece of profound, timeless wisdom. Her speech is one of the most famous passages in the entire epic. She says to him, "Gilgamesh, where are you hurrying to? You will never find that life for which you are looking. When the gods created man, they allotted to him death, but life they retained in their own keeping." She advises him to stop his frantic search and embrace the life he has. "As for you, Gilgamesh," she continues, "fill your belly with good things. Day and night, night and day, dance and be merry, feast and rejoice. Let your clothes be fresh, bathe yourself in water, cherish the little child that holds your hand, and make your wife happy in your embrace. For this too is the lot of man." This is incredible advice, isn't it? Siduri is telling him to find his immortality, not in eternal life, but in the simple, beautiful, and fleeting moments of human existence. To love, to feast, to find joy in family and community. She is the voice of reason, the advocate for accepting our mortal condition and finding meaning within it. It's a message that resonates just as powerfully today as it did thousands of years ago. But Gilgamesh is not ready to hear it. His grief is too raw, his fear too powerful. He rejects her advice. He cannot simply go back to a normal life, knowing that death is waiting. He is obsessed. He asks her, "Now you, Siduri, you who live by the seashore, you know the way. Which is the way to Utnapishtim? If it is possible, I will cross the sea. If not, I will wander the wilderness." Seeing that nothing she says will deter him, Siduri finally gives in. She tells him about the boatman, Urshanabi, the ferryman of Utnapishtim. He is the only one who can cross the lethal waters of death, but she warns him that the journey is treacherous and that he must be careful. She gives him directions to find Urshanabi in the forest, where he is with the stone things, mysterious objects essential for the crossing. And so, Gilgamesh's resolve is hardened once more. He has faced scorpion men, walked through absolute darkness, and rejected the wisdom of a goddess. He is closer than ever to his goal, but the final and most dangerous part of his journey still lies ahead, crossing the waters of death. What are these mysterious stone things? And will Urshanabi, the ferryman, agree to take him? Last time, we left Gilgamesh with Utnapishtim, the man who survived the Great Flood and was granted immortality. After failing the test of staying awake for 7 days, a despondent Gilgamesh prepared to return to Uruk, his hopes of eternal life seemingly dashed forever. But Utnapishtim's wife, taking pity on the weary king, intervened. She urged her husband to give Gilgamesh a parting gift, something to make his long, arduous journey worthwhile. So Utnapishtim reveals a secret of the gods, a final, tantalizing hope. He tells Gilgamesh of a plant that grows at the very bottom of the ocean. It's not a plant that grants immortality. No, that ship has sailed. But this plant possesses another miraculous quality. It can restore youth. Imagine it. A chance to turn back the clock, to feel the vigor and strength of one's prime once more. Utnapishtim describes it as a thorny plant, like a rose or a thistle, that will prick the hand of whoever plucks it. Its name? The old man becomes a young man. For Gilgamesh, this is an electrifying prospect. While not the eternal life he sought, the promise of rejuvenation is the next best thing. It's a chance to undo the weariness of his grief and his travels, a way to reclaim the vitality he possessed before Enkidu's death sent him spiraling. This isn't just about looking young, it's about feeling alive again. The spark of hope is reignited. Without a moment's hesitation, Gilgamesh prepares for this final, daring act. With the help of Urshanabi, the boatman, he opens a conduit to the Apsu, the freshwater ocean that lies deep beneath the earth. Tying heavy stones to his feet to weigh him down, Gilgamesh plunges into the dark, crushing depths. The pressure is immense. The water is cold and black, but his kingly determination is absolute. He searches the seabed, his eyes scanning for that thorny glimmer of hope. And then he sees it. Just as Utnapishtim described, the plant glows with a faint, otherworldly light. Enduring the sharp thorns that pierce his hands, Gilgamesh plucks it from the ocean floor. He's done it. Holding the precious plant, he severs the stones from his feet and shoots back up to the surface, gasping for air, but with a triumphant heart. He holds in his hand a second chance at life. Climbing back into the boat, he shows the plant to Urshanabi, his voice filled with a renewed sense of purpose. He declares his plan. He will not use it on himself immediately. Instead, he will take it back to his great city of Uruk. There, he will first test it on an old man. If it works, if the old man is restored to his youth, then Gilgamesh will eat it himself and reclaim the vitality of his own glorious past. It's a plan that is both cautious and communal, a sign of a king thinking of his people. The journey home begins. Gilgamesh and Urshanabi travel for days, the precious plant carefully guarded. The king is no longer the ragged, grieving wanderer. He is a man with a future, a treasure clutched in his grasp. The weight of his quest seems to have lifted, replaced by the light anticipation of his return to Uruk as a purveyor of miracles. One evening, exhausted from their travels, they make camp. Gilgamesh spies a pool of cool, inviting water. Wanting to wash away the grime and salt of the journey, he sets the plant down on the bank and steps into the pool for a refreshing bath. He feels the cool water soothe his weary muscles, his mind already in Uruk, imagining the celebration, the awe of his people. But in that moment of distraction, disaster strikes. A serpent, drawn from its lair by the sweet, magical fragrance of the plant, slithers silently toward the unguarded prize. As Gilgamesh bathes, the serpent snatches the plant and devours it in an instant. The effect is immediate and miraculous. The serpent sheds its old, wrinkled skin and emerges renewed, glistening, and young. A symbol of rebirth and healing in many cultures, the serpent has now stolen that very gift for itself. Gilgamesh emerges from the water to find his treasure gone. All that remains is the shed skin of the serpent, a cruel, papery monument to his loss. And in that moment, the king finally breaks. All the strength, all the defiance, all the hope he had mustered, it all comes crashing down. He sits down and weeps. The tears that stream down his face are not just for the lost plant, but for the totality of his failure. He wept for Enkidu, for his lost immortality, and now for his stolen youth. He had come so close, only to have it all snatched away by a moment of carelessness. The universe, it seemed, had played its final, cruelest trick on him. He turns to Urshanabi, his voice choked with despair. For whom have my hands toiled? For whom has my heart's blood been spent? I have gained nothing for myself. All I have done is brought a benefit to the serpent, the lion of the earth. His words are a lament of pure futility. The grand quest, the journey to the ends of the earth, has resulted in nothing for him. He is empty-handed. And so, Gilgamesh returns to Uruk, but his return is not the triumphant one he had envisioned. He arrives not with the secret to eternal life, or the gift of restored youth, but only with the heavy burden of his own mortality. As he and Urshanabi approach the city, Gilgamesh does something remarkable. He stops. He looks up at the magnificent city he built. He turns to Urshanabi and says, "Go up, Urshanabi. Walk upon the walls of Uruk. Inspect the foundation terrace and examine the brickwork. See if its bricks are not baked brick, and if the 7 sages did not lay its foundations." He points out the temples, the storehouses, the gardens, and the homes. He is no longer looking for a personal escape from death. Instead, for the first time, he is truly seeing his legacy. In this moment of ultimate defeat, Gilgamesh finds his true immortality. It wasn't in a plant or a divine gift. It was here all along, in the work of his hands, in the great city he built that would outlive him. The walls of Uruk, the community within, the stories that would be told, this was how he would live on. He finally understands what Siduri, the wise alewife, tried to tell him, that human life is fleeting, and the greatest meaning is found not in escaping death, but in the life one lives and the legacy one leaves behind. He has accepted his mortal fate. The frantic, desperate quest is over. He has learned that while a single human life must end, civilization, culture, and story can endure. By building Uruk, he had already created his own form of immortality. He returns to his city not as a failed god, but as a wise king, ready to rule his people with the profound understanding that he is one of them. The epic ends not with a miracle, but with a quiet, profound acceptance of what it means to be human. Gilgamesh's story is our story. It's the story of facing our greatest fears, of love, loss, and the search for meaning in a world where our time is limited. His journey teaches us that immortality is not about living forever, but about living a life that creates something that lasts forever. Gilgamesh, having faced the limits of human existence and the finality of death, begins his long journey home. The plant of eternal youth, so desperately sought, has been snatched away by a serpent, a symbol as old as time, representing renewal. But for Gilgamesh, it's the final bitter lesson. He wept, yes. He lamented the futility of his toil. But as the miles passed, something within him shifted. The frantic desperation that had driven him across the world began to subside, replaced by a quiet, weary acceptance. He is no longer the tyrant who ruled Uruk with an iron fist, nor the grief-stricken hero trying to wrestle fate into submission. He is now simply Gilgamesh, a man who has looked into the abyss and returned. He travels with Urshanabi, the ferryman, the one who guided him across the waters of death. Their conversation is no longer about cheating mortality, but about the nature of life itself. Gilgamesh speaks of Enkidu, not with the raw agony of fresh loss, but with the fond, aching memory of a bond that defined him. He recounts his adventures, the monsters slain, the gods challenged, and through the telling, he starts to understand the true shape of his story. It was never about the destination immortality, but about the journey and what it revealed. As they approach the great city of Uruk, the familiar silhouette of its towering walls rises from the horizon. The sun catches the baked clay bricks, making them glow with a warm, golden light. A sense of peace, one that had eluded him for so long, settles over Gilgamesh. He turns to Urshanabi, but his voice holds no despair. Instead, there's a newfound pride, a quiet and profound realization. "Look, Urshanabi," he says, his arm sweeping towards the monumental structure. "Behold the walls of Uruk. This is the city I built. This is my legacy." In that moment, Gilgamesh understands. He points out the foundations of baked brick, the craftsmanship, the sheer scale of the achievement. He tells Urshanabi to walk upon the ramparts, to survey the city within, the bustling markets, the glorious temples, the homes where families live and children play. This, he explains, is the work of his hands. This is what will endure. The quest for personal, physical immortality was a fool's errand, a chase after a phantom. True immortality, he now sees, isn't about one man living forever. It's about what we create, what we build, and what we leave behind for others. It's in the stories told, the knowledge passed down, and the communities that flourish long after we are gone. His life would not be eternal, but the walls of Uruk would stand for generations. The story of his journey, of his love for Enkidu, and of the wisdom he gained would be etched into clay tablets and into the memory of his people. Gilgamesh, the king who sought to conquer death, finally made peace with his mortality by embracing his humanity. He found his eternity not in a magical plant, but in the brick and clay of his city, in the culture he nurtured, and in the epic tale of his life, a story that has, against all odds, achieved its own kind of immortality, speaking to us across 4,000 years. He returned not as a god, but as a wise and great king, ready to rule with compassion, and an understanding of what truly matters. His greatest triumph was not in finding eternal life, but in learning how to live a meaningful one. And so concludes the Epic of Gilgamesh, the world's first great work of literature. It's a story that teaches us that our legacies are not written in the stars, but are built with our own hands, in the communities we serve and the love we share.